welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my labor and delivery story. Some precursor information to this video I need to say before I get started is that, first of all, this video I have a feeling it's going to be kind of long just because what birth story is not long? There's so many details that go into it. So I might break this into a part 1 and part 2 video. The next thing is that there were some fuzzy parts for me in my memory, not because it was so long ago, but because of all the medication I was on in the hospital. I don't really remember some things, and I called my mom to get her side of it, so I'm going to fill in details as best I can with what she had told me. The third thing is that Jacob was not really there. He was away, 2 hours away out of town for a mandatory work training that he was doing. And it was a prolonged training, so he was only able to take a day and a half away from that training to come be with me during labor and delivery. So just keep that in mind. He had a short amount of time to come be with me. I'm so excited. I took a poll on Instagram, and it was between my labor and delivery story, and the other one was Meet Nora / her 1 to 12 month update, because I've just started this channel. I didn't really do updates on YouTube as she progressed like normal YouTube moms do. So I'm just gonna put it all in one video, and that will be a whole nother one. At a later time, I just did the poll to see which one to do first. Honestly, it makes sense to me to do the labor and delivery story first because labor and delivery happened before Nora. Chronological order. That really makes my OCD happy. Okay, so Nora is napping right now. I'm watching her on the baby monitor to the side of me. When she wakes up, I'll have to take a break and I'll have to come back. So if I move around or I'm like hopping around in this video, just bear with me. We're gonna get through this. We're going to go back in time. Okay, so let's get into it. The day was Tuesday, April 4th, 2017. In the morning, I went to my 39-week checkup, just a normal day. I was expecting to just get my checkup and be good. I got there and I was taken back. My nurse weighed me and took my vitals, which was all normal. She told me that my blood pressure was higher than it has been ever previously before in my other checkups. So she took it again, like the old-fashioned way with the arm strap and the little pump. And it was still high. So she made note of that before the doctor came in. The other thing was that my normal OBGYN was on vacation. I was really stressed out about that. I hated the idea of not having my normal OB. I like consistency. So I met with a different OB that day, and he went through all the things with me, what the plan was going to be, just to keep watch of everything. And he checked me. He told me I was a 1/2 centimeter dilated, which disappointed me because the week before that, my 38-week checkup, my normal OB had said that I was 1 centimeter dilated. So I was hoping for more progression by my 39-week checkup, and was disappointed to find out that it was even less than the week before. So anyway, after talking to me about my blood pressure and some other symptoms, like I was feeling more nauseous than normal, even though I was already nauseous all the time throughout my entire pregnancy. And I also was having lots of headaches that just kind of came out of nowhere. The doctor that I was seeing that day didn't like what I had told him or my symptoms were. And just to be safe, he wanted to send me over to triage at the hospital to get some blood work done just to make sure I didn't have preeclampsia. And so if I did end up having preeclampsia, I can't talk today. If I did end up having preeclampsia, I was to be induced immediately since I was so close to my due date. It wasn't worth the risk if I ended up having it. So my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were waiting for me in the waiting room. They're the only family I have nearby, and they were so excited, just as I was, for everything. So they were there for me. I went out to the waiting room and I told them what had happened, like what the plan was, and they offered to drive me to the hospital. Luckily, I have been prepared at this point from like the few previous weeks, from about 37 weeks, I think. I had my hospital bag, Jacob's hospital bag, Nora's hospital bag, Nora's car seat, and Nora's car seat base, all in my car and ready to go because I wasn't taking any chances with Jacob being at his mandatory training. I needed to be prepared and on top of my business. So I just took everything from my car and we put it in my mother-in-law's car, and they drove me over to the hospital to triage. moving on to triage. When I got there, I was taken back and I had to put a gown on, and she did some just general tests, like same with my vitals, and she did the blood work, which I hate. I hate getting my blood taken. I'm just a wimp and I get kind of faint and nauseous. I hate everything about needles. So then she told me, which I had not expected, she ended up telling me I needed a clean urine sample as well. And I was like, okay, like I was getting ready to go pee in a cup, but I didn't know that that meant I had to have a catheter. And she asked me if I ever had that done before, and I told her no. So she kind of walked me through it, which I wish she wouldn't have talked about it. I wish I would just not have known and gone in blind to that whole scenario. As soon as she inserted the catheter, that's when everything started getting weird and going downhill. All of a sudden, I could not hear, I could not see, and I got a crazy like light cold sweat going on, and I felt super nauseous. So I sat up super quick, and somehow she was able to give me a trash can quick enough, and I threw up. After I threw up, she was looking at me and looking at the computer and looking at me like back and forth, and she looked really concerned, and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I feel so much better now that I threw up. Like everything's coming back. I can hear and see again. Everything's fine." And then she's looking at me like confused, but she's still looking at her computer and she's looking back at me, and I was like, you know, what's going on now? And she said, "Are you sure? Are you sure you feel okay?" while looking at the computer. And I said, "Yes." Why? What's wrong? What's happening with my baby? Like I could tell it was something going on. Because at this point, I didn't mention before, but I had already had the strap around my belly to monitor Nora's vitals. And so I know she was watching what was going on with the baby. Without telling me what's going on, she looked super worried and panicked and just left the little curtain room that I was in. And I just started panicking at that point. I was thinking, oh my God, what happened? Like, I don't know, I was just speechless, and I started shaking, and I felt like an eternity before she came back. She came back in and she brought 2 other nurses with her. So there was 3 nurses in the room, and there was the on-call OBGYN and a surgeon. At this, I was just like, what? What's happening? And so anyways, the nurses are running around me like crazy. I got a shot in one arm. I got an IV placed in this arm, and it was all so fast. While that was happening, the on-call OB came over to me and he said, "Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. What happened just now when retrieving your clean urine sample was that your baby's heart rate dropped for 3 minutes, and we don't know why that happened." And I was just thinking, okay, what? What do you mean her heart rate dropped? What's happening? Like, and he continues to say like, she's okay now, but since we don't know what happened, we're going to keep you in the hospital. We're going to admit you into a hospital room, and you're going to be induced today. At this point, I am super nervous because I didn't like any of the uncertainty, the fact that they couldn't explain what happened with me and my baby. But I was also excited, like I started getting excited because I was so over being pregnant. I hated being pregnant. I was more than ready to meet my daughter. So anyway, at that point I was really frazzled, and I started thinking, oh God, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law are in the waiting room, and I asked a nurse to tell them what was going on because I had been gone way longer than just some blood work and urine sample. And so I guess someone was able to let them know. I got sent into a hospital room, or just admitted into a hospital room, and I called my mom and I said, "Hey Mom, it's time, get your butt over here. We're gonna have this baby soon." And she freaked out, was so excited. My mom lives about 2 hours away from me as well, so she had to make the trip to come to me, but she was already ready. I made sure to tell her ahead of time to pack her bags in case anything happened. That way she could just jump in the car and come drive to me. Then I called Jacob III. I was really debating calling him because they were going to induce me. I wasn't sure exactly when Nora would be close to delivery, but I didn't want to take the chance for him to miss it, so I called him sooner than later and I let him know what's going on. He came that evening. By the time my mom got there, it was Tuesday afternoon, like 3 p.m. and then Jacob got there Tuesday evening around 6 p.m. And all that time I was with my mom and my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law was there for a chunk of the time as well. When Jacob got there, pretty much everyone had left and just let us spend some time together. We walked to the hospital to try to, like, you know, get things going, and kind of help my body go into labor on top of the induction medicine. They started me on Pitocin, I think Tuesday around 2 p.m. and we didn't really see any difference. Like I had been taking it every few hours until it was about Wednesday afternoon. 24 hours had passed and I was still taking it every few hours, but nothing was changing. I didn't have any abnormal contractions. I had the normal Braxton Hicks, but those are nothing. And so we just hung out in the hospital and I didn't really get to sleep. I took naps here and there, but it was so hard to get comfortable on the hospital bed. I pretty much had all of the pillows in the hospital, it felt like. It was Wednesday, April 5th, and nothing was happening. Everybody was visiting and coming and going and leaving. My family that lived far away from me came to visit, everyone except my sister. So my brother, my sister-in-law, and my nephew came and they visited me, but nothing happened, so they left. And then my other brother and Nora's godfather, Jacob's best friend, came to visit me in the hospital, and then nothing was happening, so they left as well, and everybody went back to their life. She has awakened. Okay, pause. I'll be back. Okay, we're back with an outfit change and a bath. So I was being checked multiple times. There was no progression. I think by the end of Wednesday, I was only 1.5 centimeters dilated, and I started at 0.5 centimeters, so half a centimeter dilated on Tuesday morning, and it was then Wednesday. So in a day's time, I dilated maybe 1 centimeter, if that. Wednesday night, Jacob and I were walking the circle in the hospital over and over and over, and he was so tired. He did not want to keep walking, but he kept walking with me, and I was like, you don't have to walk with me. It's fine. I just want to walk so I can, you know, start this progression, because I knew that there was a limited amount of time that Jacob had, and I was like, we are gonna have this baby and I'm gonna make it happen. So I just kept walking and walking and walking. It was Wednesday. Everyone in my family had left aside from my mom and Jacob. My mom just went like to my house to get some sleep while Jacob was still there. And since nothing was happening, we just kept her updated. Same with my mother-in-law and all of my in-laws in the family. And so then it was getting late and I really wanted to have the baby. We were walking the hospital and just trying to get something started and get more, anything, just more dilation, anything we could do. And we asked the nurses if there was anything we could do besides just walking, and she said, the nurse came in and she said that we could up the Pitocin, but she had to wait to get approval on it. So while we were waiting, Jacob and I just kept walking. And I just have to say that when I wrote out my birth plan a few weeks before any of this happened, I had planned not to have any medication unless like absolutely necessary, unless I decided to change my mind last minute. I planned to go natural. But then, unplanned, I had to get induced and I was started on Pitocin. So at this point, I would rather have an upped dose of Pitocin. That way my husband could see the birth of our daughter and have, you know, I'd rather have that happen than not have an upped dose of Pitocin and he miss it, you know? And so 10 p.m. rolls around on Wednesday, April 5th, and Jacob has to leave. He has to go back out of town to his mandatory work training, and that just broke my heart. Like, they hadn't been able to give me the up dose of Pitocin yet because all the nurses were busy and it was getting late and he had to leave. So I was a sobbing mess. I was a disaster. It hurt me so bad. The earliest Jacob could come back to the hospital was on Friday after the end of day of his training that day, and that would probably mean like Friday evening. So my thought was that Nora was going to come before then and he was going to miss it. So we were both a mess and we were both really upset and, you know, crying as he was saying goodbye. I was just like, I don't want you to leave. I mean, I completely supported him in going back to his mandatory training because it was mandatory, and I get that, but it was just really hard because it's such a big moment in your life and you become parents, you know, and I wanted to share that with my favorite person. So long story short, he ended up leaving. He left around 10 p.m. Wednesday night. Then My mom came back. My mother-in-law was there too. She had left to go home since nothing was happening. And then my mom came back to stay with me since Jacob had gone, and that way I just wasn't alone. My mom and my mother-in-law were my rocks when Jacob left. When one was there, the other one would like take a break and go recharge, and then they would swap and like take turns, and they were there for me 100%. So that evening, it was like around 11, I decided that I needed to like relax and rest. I was finally tired enough to go to sleep, and like the excitement of having a baby had kind of calmed down. It had already been 24 hours and I hadn't had a good night's sleep. So I got comfortable as best I could in the hospital bed and finally fell asleep, I think. I don't know how long I was sleeping. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had the worst pain in my entire life. Like, I felt a Braxton Hicks contraction, but the pain was nothing compared to the Braxton Hicks. Braxton Hicks contraction felt like a joke compared to a real contraction. I thought right then and there that Nora was gonna come out in like 2 seconds and it would be done. I would be, you know, she would be born. So I woke my mom up and I was like, Mom, I don't know what this is, the worst pain, call a nurse. And I'm hitting the button on the remote and I'm trying to call and they can't like hear me. We happen to have a faulty remote. So I was cringing in pain and like on the verge of tears. And so I told my mom, go get a nurse, we need help right now. And she finally left me. She finally left me after so long, and when she came back with no nurse, I was like, what is going on? Why isn't there a nurse with you, Mom? And she's like, apparently all the nurses are delivering babies and they're all busy and occupied. And I was just like, okay, I don't know how much longer I can wait. Like, I was just super impatient, and this pain I was feeling I never felt before. So I was thinking, like, I'm gonna have this baby, my mom's gonna have to deliver it right here in the hospital room because everybody's busy apparently. Finally, a nurse came in as I kept going through contractions. And I was kind of confused as to why she was not on my level of intensity. Obviously, she wasn't having contractions, but I was like, we need to get a doctor in here right now. I'm going to have this baby. And she's like, okay, hold on. Let me check the computer. And she checked all of the information that she had missed while being gone. And then she was like, all right, let me check you just to see how dilated you are before we move on. And I was like, okay, well, I'm sure it's a 10. I didn't say that, but I was just so confident that it was already 10 centimeters at that point. And she checked me and she was like, okay, so you are 2 centimeters. And let me just say, where's my knee? 2 centimeters? Only 2? Yeah, 2 centimeters. All I could think was, if that was the kind of contraction and the kind of pain I was going to have with 2 centimeters dilated, I could not even fathom how it would be at 10 centimeters. So I was like, okay, I need the epidural. I need the anesthesiologist. Can you please send him in? And she said, yeah, no problem. They sent in the anesthesiologist. He got there about he got there about an hour later. It felt way longer than that. And then he gave me the epidural, which I'm scared of needles, but I was in so much pain, I did not care. I was just like, I was more relaxed than I've ever been when he was administering it. And I heard lots of things like the epidural hurts and it's painful, but honestly, I didn't feel it. Compared to the contraction pain, that needle was just a breeze. It was fine. And afterwards, it was even better. I didn't feel any contraction at all after I got the epidural. I was able to finally relax and I just passed out. After that, I was so tired. I hadn't slept in 24 hours. I passed out, went to sleep. I was still having the contractions. I guess I was still progressing. The nurses kept coming in while I was sleeping and checking me, and I was like in and out, my mom said. I was awake and then not awake, and at some point my mother-in-law had come back to the hospital to be with my mom and me, but I don't really remember any of that. It just, like, I remember waking up at one point and she appeared. Oh, and with the epidural as well, I could definitely feel that one leg was more numb than the other leg. Like, I completely could not move. I think it was my left leg, but my right leg I could move a little bit. In my birth plan that I did not bring with me to the hospital because I forgot to print it out, I had planned to do the delayed cord clamping, and I wanted Jacob to be the one to cut the cord, obviously, my husband. Since Jacob had to leave and go back to his work training, I asked my mother-in-law to be the one to to cut the cord after we did the delayed cord clamping. And she said yes, thank goodness. I was so happy that she was okay doing it.